What was that like in Nigeria? Because you've traveled the world playing football, what's different between these countries and Nigeria?
I think basically it's about the culture. Growing up in a humble background and a Christian home, there is much more control from the parents. There's much more directed path going forward. Whereas in other countries that I've played in, there's also culture in Asia, but I think it's not as controlled as in Nigeria. So there's a little bit more freedom for choices and directions. But I think the culture is the most significant difference.
You told me that your parents would have preferred you to be a lawyer or a doctor. I mean, when was the first idea of your professional journey in football? When did that start to appear that you could have been a footballer?
So there has been traces of the talent right from when I was very young, say 4 or 5 years old, just kicking the ball around. And in my very early school days, it was all about the school team representing and all of that, but it was never something serious until late in my high school days, where my literature teacher just told me, you could be a lawyer, you're very good with your academics, but you could also be a professional footballer because you're also very good at that. So um, he told me to join a local team and just start training with them because I never did professional training or whatever. I was just drop the ball on the streets and let's kick about. And I started training with the local team, and that was when it hit me. I think I derived more joy playing football than studying to be a lawyer.
I mean, would a lawyer and a doctor have been the other option had you not become a footballer? Would you have probably gone down that route?
It's funny to think about because it probably wouldn't have. I would most likely have become a musician,
Okay.
not even a lawyer. Yeah. So
Is
that's the control thing I was telling you about.
in Nigeria, is that quite common then, where the football is seen as a last resort, maybe where the lawyer, the doctor, musician, these other kind of more advanced industries come into play, where your parents would have preferred you to be in a more advanced industry than football?
Yeah, it's more of a perspective thing and a social classification thing where, for example, the parents are in a meeting with their friends, and then everybody goes, "Hey, my son is a lawyer. Hey, my son is a doctor. Hey, my son is an engineer." And then your parents say, "My son is a footballer." They're gonna look, what are you talking about, a footballer? But now there's more exposure to the profession, the professional footballer. There's much more respect, so it's different now. But then it wasn't. It was like those who are dumb, I think.
So your parents, like you said, would have preferred you to be a lawyer or a doctor. Your literature teacher told you that you should have been a footballer. Do you remember the first memory when you first played football? Was it with your friends? Was it in the local park? What was the first memory you have of football?
So the farthest memory I have of football was playing when I was in primary school for the school team and scoring goals. I don't remember the details of the goals, but I remember how I was celebrated and how many parents looked at me with admiration and all of that. So I think it goes as far back as maybe 6 years old or 5 years old.
And why did you choose to be a striker? Because a lot of people, want to be up front, and a lot of people slowly die out of playing up front because of the competition. Why were you possibly better than the rest and stayed up front?
Um, so initially, you don't get to decide these things. The coach from the local team just looks at your style of play and what you're probably good at doing, and then decides, okay, you go play that position. But I started off as a winger, and I was speedy. I could win the 1v1 duels. I could pull a beautiful cross, and I could score goals. But I was eventually switched to than the rest of the winger stuff, the traditional crosses and all of that. So the coach said, "You know what? I think you're just gonna play in the striker role," and it's
So that school team that first got you into football, or that local team rather, how long were you at that team for? When you really discovered your talent in football?
I'd say 2 or 3 years.
And what did you learn in that time?
I learned the discipline that comes with being a professional footballer, the dedication that comes with it, and I had that time to make up my mind: is this the kind of life I want to live, or is it something that I cannot do? And I learned mostly the basics. It wasn't street football anymore and the rules.
So on to today. What would you class yourself as a striker? Are you skillful? I mean, I know you're quite strong and quite fast. I've seen some videos. Would you class yourself on skill, or in a game would you rather class yourself on speed and strength?
I think I'd rather class myself on speed and strength, and a little bit of skill. I'm not the flashy footballer, but I have my moments. But yeah, when it comes down, most professional thing, business football, basically, I just want to go score goals and win the game. I'm not thinking about displaying skills. Yeah.
In Nigeria, it is really, really common that there, like you said to me, that there's a lot of children in Nigeria that have the talent, but there's lacking of resources in order to be able to be scouted or play for good teams, and to be able to go essentially play in Europe would be the ideal route. Did you see when you were in Nigeria across all these teams that is the case, where players aren't getting seen, but there's a lot of talent there? And if so, what do those children do that's different to other countries that you've been to in terms of wanting to be a footballer?
They just keep going at it. For example, in Nigeria, I was denied countless of times from signing a professional contract or a semi-professional contract. I was told no by so many coaches, but none of them told me I wasn't good enough. It was always something else. Sorry, we have enough players already, or just some excuses that don't make any sense. But it was never about you're not good enough. So what the kids in Nigeria get, and eventually they hope to get somebody who's gonna say, "Okay, come," and that happened in my case too.
So were you one of the lucky ones then, I'm guessing?
Exactly. I think it's also down to luck, because a lot of those talents just die out and they never become professionals.
When you were in Nigeria and you were growing up and you were playing for these teams, I mean, there's a lot of newspaper articles and a lot of rumours about corruption in Nigeria with football, where in Greece and these other countries as well. In Nigeria, is there clear corruption in football, or is there not?
I think corruption in football is everywhere. So obviously it's going to be in Nigeria as well. But the FA, the Nigerian FA, is trying all the best to stop this. Yeah, but obviously there's a lot of corruption everywhere in the world. Nigeria is not excluded.
True. So let's talk about your teams. I mean, the service isn't too great, so let's just hope the service keeps continuing on a better rate. So you signed for Abia Warriors in Nigeria in 2017, and you stayed there for a year. What was that like? Your first real introduction into football?
Yeah. It was tough, very tough. It was different from playing with the local team and just having friendly games. It was preparing for league games in the weekend. And there was a lot more demand and pressure from everybody, from the boss to the coaches to the fellow players. So it was really tough, but I enjoyed it, of course, because I loved the game.
And what was the step like between playing your local team and now to play for Abia Warriors? Because obviously that was the big step that you had to make to be able to play where you are.
Yeah. So I've had opportunities to go try out at a lot of teams before going to the Abia Warriors team. I was traveling from the Nigerian national team camp, the under 20s at that time, trying to see if I could get a spot in that team. So I was denied I think they were preparing for a World Cup in France or something like that. So I took a night bus and just went to coaches and we had the trial game. And just right after the game, they decided they were going to give me a contract, and it was just like that.
So when you were with the
It was a
Nigerian
chance.
under 20s, and you were trying to get the opportunity to play with them, what was that talent like? Was that even bigger to what you're used to so far?
Oh yes, it was, because I was seeing big names, people that I would only hear on TV or see in international games, and we were on the same pitch together. And I was just playing with them, So it was a lot of pressure, but I tried my best to show what I had.
With the talent that you saw in this Nigerian youth team, you mentioned the big names that you saw. I mean, how often did you see these players? I mean, were you only there for a few days, an hour? How often did you see these talents come through?
So I was there for about a week, and I saw them basically every day. And I had a good relationship with the coach after I arrived, and they saw me play. They were surprised that I hadn't gone pro already. They gave me very good encouragement, and they had nice words to say, but they just couldn't take me for that position because there were also very big names playing the same position. So it was quite an experience for me, basically.
And then you moved to Austin United in March of 2018 until January 2020 in Nigeria again, another Nigerian team. How did you get that move? How did that move come about?
So in Nigeria, it's easier to get more contracts after you broke into the system than from just the local team. So because I had video proofs, video clips, and a lot of people had already seen me play. So it was still not an easy.
So you were in Austin United from March 2018 to January 2020. Again, that step up, that transfer that you made over. Tell us that transfer and how it came about.
So after playing in Abia Warriors, it was easy to get to Oshu United because I had already played in the league. So it wasn't an academy player or a local team player. I was already a league player. I went for tryouts with Oshu United. I was rejected and called back about 3 times, and eventually I was given a contract.
And what was that feeling like? Do you remember that feeling when you were offered the contract? What was that feeling like?
It was awesome because I felt like I was starting to live the dream, and to negotiate for the salaries and all of this, feeling more professional than what I was used to. It was really, really good. It was very encouraging.
In the 2 years that you spent at Austin United, what did you firstly learn? And secondly, what was the best thing you achieved there?
So I learned that there's different levels of pressure in the game. There's different standards, and what you could do in a previous level, you find out that in the higher level, it's nothing, So I learned to step up my game and work harder. I learned sometimes doing the simple things is just the best way to go being a professional, and just leave everything flashy. I learned that in the professional setting, all they want is results. They don't care about any other thing. Just give the result and you're the best player.
You spent another year after this. We'll talk about the other move that you had in Nigeria. But what is the Nigerian Football League like?
It's very tough, very physical, very straightforward. There is nothing fancy about it. Like I said, everybody just wants to get the result. So we look for the quickest way to get the result possible. Launch the ball forward and let's fight for it. It's closer to the goal from there.
So would you say that there's less of a tactical element in Nigeria?
In the lower leagues, yes.
And what is that like then? If you were in the lower leagues, which you were, to be able to move up to the top leagues, the professional full-time thing, is that harder than it would be in England, or would you say it's a bit easier?
I think it's relative. The difficulty level is relative, because if you're a very good player in the lower leagues, it's gonna be very easy to move up to the higher leagues. If you're an average player in the lower leagues, then it's gonna be more difficult. Same as it is in England, It's just about the quality that you present.
But the thing is with Nigeria is it's harder to present the talent because there's less scouts, there's less coaches looking at you, right?
But it's still a very small circle at the end of the day, the Nigerian Football League. So if you're doing very well, there's people who are going to see you and then recommend you to bigger clubs. For example, I had maybe 5 or 6 people trying to get me to the bigger leagues,
So it's relatively similar to England, but the next move that you had was during COVID. And before we talk about the move itself, in Nigeria at the time, what was COVID like? Because you managed to seal a move during that time.
So in Nigeria at the time, COVID was serious. There was the numbers everywhere, but in the close areas, like the estates where you grow up or the environment where you live, there was fairly enough movement around. People weren't really locked indoors. People didn't actually believe there was a COVID virus and all of that. So yeah, most of the establishments were not functioning as they usually would, but it wasn't a very difficult time, at least for where I was living.
And did you find it hard during that period? What was football like at that time?
Yeah, we couldn't play football. We really couldn't play football. Go to training. You just had to work out on your own, basically.
So during that time, you'd say it was quite an isolated time for yourself.
Yeah.
So you moved to Stationery Stores FC in January 2020 for 2 years. You were there for 2 seasons. And again, that was during COVID. What was that like? Again, that move would have been an upgrade from the previous club.
Yeah, it was an upgrade from the previous club because it was a private team, and the private team spend more money. They usually have better facilities and better infrastructures for the players. So it was an upgrade, but it was still the same level of football, the second league. And yeah, we started in the season, but then we had to stop when the COVID pandemic was at the highest. So the entire 2020-2021 season was cancelled, and then we just had to come back to it the next season.
And how did you find that adjustment, from a year going to not playing football to now back into the full swing of it?
Thankfully, there's the pre-season stages for footballers, right? And you just have to keep in shape, work out on your own. Also, you steal some games within the local environment with guys who are hungry to play football, and we just gather on the field and play together, no noise, whatever. But yeah, it was pretty nice to finally be able to play competitive football again and not have to hide or do all that stuff.
I mean, you must have remembered that moment where you didn't play football for ages. You were back on pre-season, first kicking the ball. What was that feeling like after so long of not being able to play?
Well, it wasn't such a great feeling because I thought I was going to faint or pass out. I didn't have enough cardio to go 5 minutes into the game, So yeah, I definitely remember that feeling, and I hate that feeling.
But that's the same with all the pre-seasons, right? You've always got to adjust back to life.
Yes, definitely.
So the 2 years that you spent, you could basically say it was one season. The first season that you had there, the first proper season, what did you achieve in that time from a personal but also a team's perspective?
So personally, I developed into a player who could play several positions because my coaches felt I had enough stamina and strength to go back and forth and help in the defense. So rather than play me as the center forward, they played me sometimes as the winger who would always help defensively. And then in some crucial games, they played me as the central midfielder who would have to join the attack and support deep down in the defense. So it helped me develop experience in these positions that I didn't get the opportunity to play previously.
And did you like that? Did you like the sound of playing in all sorts of positions rather than just the sole striker?
No, no, but I had to do it because I wanted to be on the match squad. I hate to miss out on the squad, especially on the starting 11. So I just did it because it ensured that I was still on the starting 11. But I also have a progressive way of thinking. So I just take every um, of this as an opportunity to learn something new.
And what did you learn playing in like 19 positions? What did you learn from that?
That I have a lot of strength.
And you're fast, and you need the pace and the strength.
Yeah, but I learned that football is very simple. You can be a very good footballer, not the special great one, but you can be a very good footballer if you understand the basics of football and just stick to it. Do what's necessary, don't overdo anything, and just help the team to flow, basically. So I learned football is simple.
And did you learn that because you see players and opponents playing too much with their mind, maybe, where they don't let the feet do the talking? It's more about how many people can I run past rather than if I pass it to you, we can score a goal. I said when you were playing in all these positions and you saw your game a bit differently, did you understand that the players and your opponents that you were playing against maybe started to play the game a lot differently to what you did with their feet, a lot more trying to run past four people rather than playing as the team?
Yes, I did. That's the mindset of many young footballers, and especially in that level of football, they see a lot of professional players do really special things, and they assume this is entirely what football is about. But they don't realize these professionals do it at certain times and not every time in the game. So they misinterpret that and just try to do it every time in the game.
But that is really common, though, with young children, where maybe the coaches don't rein it in as enough, where the skills can just do what they want.
Yeah, it's common, and sometimes the coaches try to direct them on the right things to do on the field. But I mean, we are just stubborn at the end of the day.
So during this COVID time, in England anyway, it was we were coming out of COVID at this time. And in February of 2022, you decided to make the move to Prayong FC in Cambodia. I mean, that must have been quite a big move in terms of the culture, right?
Yeah, it was. It was a defining move in my career, basically, because it launched me international, and it was really huge.
Did you learn the language? What was it like to settle in there? You were only there for a few months.
No, I didn't learn the language, but I was able to learn some of the numbers, which I have totally forgotten. Because when they play in the rondos in Asia, they count in their language. So you have to learn the language because you have to count along with them. So yeah, I learned the numbers, but that was it.
Why did you have to count with the rondos? Was it just to build a bit of team spirit?
It was also to encourage concentration, because now you have to think about what number is next from the guy who just passed the ball, and if you count the wrong number, you go in the middle.
No one wants to be in the middle.
Yeah, no one wants to be.
Cambodia's an interesting one. I don't think I've ever spoken to anyone who's played football in Cambodia. And what's that like? Is there similarities to Nigeria?
No. Although football is the same, it's the same sport, it's the same basics and everything, but the style of play and the approach to the game is usually different in different countries. So Cambodia was definitely different from Nigeria.
And what was different about Cambodia? Was the tactics different? Was the work rate different? What was the main differences?
So in Nigeria, it was more physical and direct. In Cambodia, there was more tactics. There was less physicality, but it was fast. They love to run with the ball.
But that suited your game, right?
Yeah, perfectly. It was just perfect for me.
In that same month when you left Cambodia, Well, why did you decide to leave Cambodia? Because you were only there for a matter of months.
Yep. So when the league was over in Cambodia, there was an adjustment going on in the FA, the Football Federation of Cambodia, where they wanted to adjust the calendars to be in sync with the European calendar. So we are done with the league in, I think, October or September, and the next season was going to start in August the next year. So that was almost 9 months without football, so I had to look for the closest country that were still in the season, probably ready for second round, and that was Thailand. So I decided to move to Thailand to continue playing football in Thailand rather than wait 9 months without football.
And you've been in Thailand for quite a while now. You've had 2 clubs in Thailand. We'll talk about those too. But again, what was that transition like? Because I'm presuming there's a different language from Cambodia to Thailand. Did you learn that language?
It's the same with Cambodia. I didn't learn that language, but I learned how to count the numbers. I still remember because I still play in Thailand. And yeah, a little bit of the basics like the hellos and just some of that.
And again, what's the difference in Thailand from other places, Nigeria and Cambodia? Is there more? I'm going to guess. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. Is it faster again? Is it more strength?
It's now different. It's more tactics. It's more coach controlled. It's more advanced, basically. I choose to use the word advanced. So it's less physicality, except in some zones. It's less running with the ball. It's more passing and trying to break the opponent's defense.
I believe it was Thailand. No, sorry, it was Mongolia. But maybe it's the same in Thailand, where and Cambodia as well, where the conditions of the pitches. One guy made his debut in minus 18 degrees, and the pitch was I can't even say my words. The pitch was frozen up because obviously it was minus 18 degrees. In Thailand, Cambodia, is this similar where the facilities aren't too great?
Yeah, it's definitely not minus 18 degrees. It's definitely way hotter in Thailand and Cambodia. Some games you have to play under the hot sun, and this on its own, it's very tiring and exhausting. But yeah, the pitch conditions in the lower leagues are also terrible, very terrible.
But that's what you would expect, though, because I'm so used to playing, watching Premier League and all these top facilities. It's because these sorts of countries provide money into the infrastructure of football, whereas in Thailand, Cambodia, maybe not so much.
Yeah, and also because they are still trying to encourage the sport in these countries, so they are just giving opportunities to anybody who can create a team, who can sponsor a team, just bring it on. And I think they would get to that level where it's going to be more controlled. If you don't have this level of facility or this level of ground, you would not be able to participate in it.
One thing that I often get told is that the Asians are very, very crazy about football. They love football. The fans over there are just insane. What was the biggest attendance and the best atmosphere you've experienced in Asia?
In Asia?
Yes.
I don't know if I am going to get the numbers specifically right, but it was over 4,000 fans in the cup game against the Division 1 team.
And I'm presuming Division 1 is the best division you could have played?
Yeah, that's the highest league in Thailand.
Is that competitive? I mean, where would you put that on an English basis? Where would you place Thailand's top division?
Say in the League 1.
So that's still a great standard, isn't it? And obviously, a lot of those teams are competing against Al Nassr and Cristiano Ronaldo, right?
Yes. No, I wouldn't say they compete against Al Nassr, but they compete in the ASEAN. There is the Asian, and then there's the ASEAN, which is comprised of the Southeast Asian countries. So they compete in the ASEAN against teams from Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, these kind of top teams. But yeah, also they compete in the Asian Cups, and yeah, they could have the opportunity to compete against these Asian countries.
And when you've been in Asia, what was the best moment that you've experienced so far? We're going to talk about the 2 moves that you've had in Thailand, but currently, up to date, what is the best experiences you've had?
It's not so much, but I scored some really brilliant goals, and I also had some moments in the national TV news for Lagos State. So this was like next level things for me, coming from the local teams and just a humble background to seeing myself in the national TV. Yeah, that was the best experience.
I mean, in the long run, would the aim to be? I mean, you're only about 24 years old, so with the long run, is it possible to get into the Nigerian national team?
It's still possible, but very difficult because there's a lot of talented Nigerian players, especially the forwards now. You can see the Osimhens and the Boniface and the Chukwueze and all of that. And then they are playing in the top leagues in the world where the spotlight is. So it's not even something that I'm thinking about or focused on. I'm just focusing on climbing the ladder of the leagues, just trying to get to the top level and stay there, basically.
But you must be being watched or scouted or reported back to the coach, right? I mean, obviously, the majority of players playing in top divisions in Asia or other countries would be, or maybe you disagree.
There is just that kind of discrimination for playing in Asia. I wouldn't want to use the word discrimination because it's a strong word, but it's just a mindset, basically. If you're not playing in Europe, maybe it's not really good standard at the end of the day. But we know different.
Well, I mean, each to their own. I still think Asia's a great football league, so do not give up on playing in top divisions in Asia. So you moved into Thailand in December of 2022 for PTU FC. They've got some wacky names out there, but I like it. and, and you spent about 7 or 8 months there in this first club in Thailand. Again, obviously you kind of learnt the language a bit more than you did in Cambodia. But what was that like, the debut game? Can you tell me about that?
So it was a really nice experience because, like I said, I left Cambodia and I didn't know anybody in Thailand. I just took the risk because they were about to start the second leg in Thailand and the league was over in Cambodia. And it wasn't enough football for me. I wanted more. So I went and I linked up with a particular agent after I arrived Thailand. And she took me for tryouts and I was given a contract after playing the tryout game. And so fast forward to the league, I didn't have a first great few games in the league. I was just readjusting to the Thai kind of football. But when it kicked in, it just kicked in, and it was amazing.
I mean, you travelled around a few countries, as we've spoken about, but I mean, Thailand, they have got some great food. I mean, was there a personal favourite for you out there?
The noodle soup, actually, it's a very basic and simple food in Thailand, but the tom yum noodle soup is just amazing for me, honestly.
Would you say out of Nigeria, Cambodia and Thailand, what has got the best food?
I'm definitely going to say Nigeria.
And what would that be? What's your favourite Nigerian dish?
It's egusi soup with fufu. It's like the melon soup with some flour mixed into pudding or something, and you just take it together, but it's heavenly.
So you like your soup, is what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I do.
Before a match, is there pre-match is there pre-match superstitions that you have? Is there anything that would be notable to put into this? Where in your day routine of a match day, what happens on that day?
So there is my preparation for the match begins from the first day of the week. It doesn't. It's not restricted to the day before the game. So I just try to be in the best shape as possible, and I try to go into the match without expectations, without pressure. I just want to play football as the beautiful game that it is, and so yeah, I think the match day is like the easiest thing for me at the end of the day. The trainings are the hardest building up to the match.
I mean, I spoke to somebody earlier, and obviously you're a striker, so he probably wouldn't do this. He said he has a Red Bull, he said he has 2 energy bars, and he said he has a bottle of water before he plays football. But apart from that, he has nothing else in his system apart from a Red Bull and some energy bars. Because he says that he feels too heavy before he plays. For you, to be fast, to be strong, to be at the top of your game as a striker, you must need to have some good nutrition inside of you, right?
Yes, so I eat the heaviest meal maybe 4 hours before the game. But after that, there is no meals because, I hate to have meals in my belly while running. But there's one thing that I always love to have, but it's not specific to the match days, and it's coffee. I just love my coffee, basically.
I thought you were going to say some soup. I thought you were going to bring up another soup from Thailand or Cambodia.
No, no way.
So before a meal, is it essentially just chicken and rice? I mean, that's what a lot of those pros have. Is it the same with you?
Yeah, it's chicken and rice, especially in Thailand. It's chicken and rice.
That's really boring, though, isn't it? You mustn't like that. Chicken and rice, plain. Just
But for me, I'm not a foodie. I'm not a food person. I don't really care about a lot of taste and whatever. I could survive on the same meal for a month and not get tired or complain about it. So yeah, it's okay for me, basically.
nice. So at PTUFC, before we talk about where you were most recently, you left that club after about 8 months. Why?
Yeah.
Why did you leave then?
So it was the end of the season, and in Asia, it's difficult to get contract renewals. I think you have to be, in fact, I don't think you have to be anything. It's just up to the club to decide if they're going to keep you or if they're going to look for somebody else. They get bored of the players, the foreigners easily, and there's the need to just switch up and give other people an opportunity. Maybe that's a progressive way of looking at it. So it was the end of the season, and I was back in Nigeria on the holidays with my family, and then the new club just sent me an offer, and it was better than PTU for sure, so I took it.
So now you're at that club, and your contract recently expired. We're going to talk about that in a moment.
Yeah.
What was that signing day like? Do you remember it in good depth?
So I had signed the contract while I was still in Nigeria. And when I finally arrived in Thailand, it was a lot of media because it's a big club, even though it's in the third division. But they have a very good media presence. So they came with paparazzi to the airport to pick me up. They came with a personal car. There was just a lot of camera following me around, and all of that media hype. Even on the signing day, there was a lot of photographs.
So you were the superstar.
Exactly. It felt really good.
I mean, is that normal? I mean, again, we spoke about this, and it's so evident where Asian clubs and Asian fans are so down to earth. I mean, if we're going to be honest, if a Spanish club signs someone who's on holiday in Nigeria, the likelihood is they probably wouldn't have all these cameras. So again, would you say that the Asian fans probably could be some of the best in the world?
Definitely. They are very passionate about their teams, especially. And if you're doing well for the club, you're just going to be on the good books of the fans.
The dark side of who is it? What country? I've interviewed someone before where they spoke about some crazy things that have happened in, I think it may have been Malaysia and Singapore. And one of them, I'll tell you now, I don't know if this happened in Thailand or Cambodia. They had to turn up to match day in army tanks because of how dangerous it was to get to the stadium. I mean, did that ever happen with you?
That would be very extreme for Thailand and Cambodia. They are really simple people in these countries.
So now you're at Shonga. I probably pronounced that very wrong. I mean, could you do a better pronunciation?
Songkla. Yeah, Songkla.
There we go, Songkla. You were out there for, again, around a year. Why did you decide? So is it just because your contract purely expired and they didn't want to renew it? And then also, how did you sum up your time at that club?
Yeah, so now the season is over and the contract is expired. We are going to negotiate and renegotiate about contract renewals. I'm also going to aim for the higher leagues because my dreams and aspirations are way higher. So now it's the time to have talks and prepare for the next season, basically. So,
how would you sum up last season?
It was amazing. It's the best season I have had in my entire life so far. I hope it continues to get better and better. But it was really, really, really great, honestly.
Go on, tell us some stories. What happened in that season?
So I started off the season not scoring on my debut game, but making important assists. So I was known as the assist striker rather than the goal scoring striker. But the fans really loved that I put in everything for the team and I wasn't selfish. If I couldn't shoot, I was just going to pass and, the guy had to just tap it in basically. And then I started scoring and it was so good. The fans really loved me. They made a song in my name. I think.
Can you do us the song now?
I think it goes like this. Ekene, Azike, Ekene, Azike, oh, Ekene. It was just like that. They would drum, and it was really nice.
What's it like when they start singing your name?
Now it's a deeper level of love and loyalty, and you just feel more committed to the club. You really don't want to disappoint or let them down because they've shown you that they accept you, So it's a different kind of relationship at that point.
I've spoken to people who have played, who have been in the squad against teams like Fenerbahce in a sold-out capacity stadium.
Yeah.
When they say that this happens and they're chanting your name and there's a really intense atmosphere, you just naturally have to block it out. You can't listen to that. Is that what you do? I mean, obviously, you get the goosebumps when they chant your name, but on a professional setting, you kind of have to be a bit more to the point and try to score the goals and get the win.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people talk about the distractions from the fans and all of that, the nervousness from seeing a sold out capacity and all of that. But for me, it really doesn't affect me. I really don't see them. I hear them, but I don't listen to them. And I don't have to do anything to shut them out. It just doesn't bother me at all because I'm focused on the game, So yeah, I don't have to do anything. Basically, it's just the way I am.
If you could, if in the summer, when we'll go ahead and talk about a bit more what happened at this recent club, but talking about your contract expiring, if you had the option to stay for another year or move clubs to a higher division, what would you do?
Move up, definitely. I love
Really?
my team. Yeah, I love the team. I love the fans, but I want to move up and play in the higher leagues. It's more exposure. It's better experience.
Would Europe be an option for you? Are you looking into moves to Europe?
So I would love to move to Europe because I'm trying to build a family with my fiancée, and she works in Europe. So yeah, Europe is a good option for me also. So yeah,
what European country would you like to play in most?
Honestly, it's Spain.
Well, it's got to be though, isn't it? Because you're playing in a hot country, nice weather, good food. They've got some good soups out there as well for you, so it would be quite nice.
Yeah, it will.
I mean, Spain would be the ideal choice. I mean, if you work, because I spoke to someone who's playing in Spain actually earlier, and it's really quite confusing their footballing pyramid, but it still works. It works quite well. Would you consider moving straight away? I mean, would Spain be an option that you take up straight away? And if so, are you actively speaking to clubs personally, or have you got agents that are working for you to get these moves?
So Spain, I would take straight away if I got the offer. I haven't started speaking to clubs, but I'm speaking to agents who are trying to make that possible. But at the same time, I'm speaking to agents who are just going to try to get me a deal in any country in Europe, and I still try to make my way to the end destination.
I hate to sound negative, but if you didn't get any move at all, is there something you could fall back on where a club would definitely accept you, or something else is there? Because I don't think you'd be able to. Would you be able to go without a year of football? I mean, what would be the other option?
So, why I said I had a great season, or one of the reasons why I said I had a great season last year, is because definitely I have a lot of teams to fall back to. If I wanted to stay in the third division, for example, in Thailand, I don't want to sound proud or arrogant or all of that, but I know I could literally walk into any of the clubs that I've played against previously, and they would gladly give me a contract. I've also had offers from a lot of teams recently, so I'm still taking my time to make the best divisions. I also have offers from the higher leagues in Thailand, so I'm still taking my time. I don't want to commit to anything and then regret.
Is that what it's like as a footballer, where sometimes the contract's on the table for you? Is there a certain time where you have to respond to that contract, or can you say, I'm going to leave it for a few weeks and just decide on my own terms?
Yeah, so the clubs, they try to put you under pressure so that you just take their offer, and so they tell you, okay, we give you 1 week to give us a response, otherwise we look for somebody else. Also because the clubs are not going to wait for you. They need to move on with their preparation. So yeah, there's usually a timeline.
One noticeable thing, or two noticeable things that happened in your season. Let's talk about the round of 16. I'm not sure if you can remember this. In the Thai FA Cup versus Bangkok United, and you lost 6-7 on penalties. Do you remember that game?
Yeah, I do.
What happened in that game? Talk us through that game, because obviously you lost that game, but you could have gone through into a big competition. So what happened in that game, and what did it feel like to lose on penalties? The worst way to lose as well.
Yeah, we lost that game on paper, but we won on the field because True Bangkok was the top team in the Thai League One. They were the first on the table at the time, so they were definitely a strong team. They finished second at the end of the season, lower than Buriram. But we gave them a big fight. I mean, they couldn't beat us in normal time. So it was kind of more embarrassing for them to go on penalties with us, and the fact that they considered 2 goals against us, and they didn't dominate the game. We actually fought against them and outplayed them in some moments and all of that. So it was an amazing game, despite the fact that we lost.
When you walked up to take your penalty, what did that feel like?
Honestly, nothing. If I'm being honest with you, nothing. It's either gonna go in or go out. So I just focus on trying to keep it in, basically.
And wait, if you faced the goal, where did you shoot? Was it the top right, top left?
It was the top left.
Top left. So you like to get it in the corners then?
Yeah.
Goalkeepers, don't watch. You might get some ideas. When your team missed the penalty, did they sky it? Did the keeper save it? What happened on that moment? And also, you go on, tell me that first.
I don't think I remember the missed penalty. I'm not sure if it was a goalkeeper save. I think it was an off-target shot, but I usually take the first penalties. So I took that and I just prayed for the rest of the guys to do well.
That's the thing, because a lot of the time we saw with Marcus Rashford in the Euros, and often I see it with a lot of players now where the manager brings them on in extra time in the hope of them scoring the penalty, of course. But then, because they haven't worn themselves up and got in the game scenario, they usually miss. But also the run-up as well. I can tell by the run-up that sometimes they look unconfident, and you can sometimes tell they're going to miss, unfortunately. I mean, is that what you see in a professional game? Because you maybe would not have expected to go to penalties, but you must have been preparing in the week.
Yeah. A lot of people overthink it, and sometimes I do, because I missed about 2 penalties last season, one in the normal league game and another in a cup game, but we eventually won that cup game. No, we actually lost that cup game. So what happens is we try to overthink it. We think we are the deciders of where the goalkeeper is going to dive to, but I've learned that the goalkeeper makes his decision to go wherever he wants to go, just as much as you make your decision to shoot wherever you want to shoot. So I've learned to just choose where I'm going to shoot, watch the goalkeeper, take a little bit of a millisecond delay, but still shoot where I choose to shoot with a lot of power. Basically, don't overthink it, don't complicate it.
Penalty shootouts are the most nerve-wracking thing you've got to say, right?
Yeah, it's difficult to watch.
You watched, you did also watch your team. You won the league unbeaten, right?
Yes, we did.
And why have you not told us about that? You went unbeaten, 17 wins, 46 goals as a team. Talk us through that season, unbeaten. You did a Bayer Leverkusen there.
Yeah, we did, but nobody's talking about it, right?
They've got to get talking about it.
The joys of the lower leagues. But we had a very great coach. I think that's the first thing. He was very detailed, and he controlled a lot of details that I hadn't seen a coach control before. We practiced everything, including the throwing. He knew what was very important, and then he specifically divided the roles and said, defenders, you just focus on keeping clean sheets. Strikers, you just focus on scoring goals. And then we go into the games with goals. Strikers, you score at least 3 goals today. Defenders, keep a clean sheet or concede a minimum of 2 goals today. And that's how we went into every game. And it worked.
when you've worked under different coaches, what is that like? Because I'll give you a team, Watford Football Club, for example. They go through managers unbelievably so quick. A manager, I seriously think there was a statistic where managers lasted about 6 months on average at Watford. It's a joke. However, when you're a player, what does that feel like to play under such a tactical manager and the next minute playing against someone who's really inexperienced?
It tells in the result. Some players, obviously, they hate tactical managers because they want more freedom to do whatever they want on the field. But I personally prefer a tactical coach and somebody who controls everything, because the best thing you can do for me as a player is give me instructions. Like I said, I am down to business when it comes to the game. I don't have time for entertainment and all of that. Yeah, I can be entertaining, but I just want to win. I just want to pass the ball when I can and run into space, basically. So now moving from that into a coach who is less tactical and whatever, it's kind of unprofessional for me, if I'm being honest.
And is there any communication between the players and clubs where you might be able to slip in a word and say you're not too impressed with a certain manager?
Maybe, but I've never been in such situation. I've never put myself in such situations. In my previous club, I was contacted before they brought in some reinforcements for the second season. They asked if I could work with this style of player. They asked if I was willing to play as a winger because they couldn't get the winger in the transfer market and they could get a striker. So they asked me some of these decisive questions, and I gave them my feedback, and they did what I asked. But that's the closest I've gotten to interfering with the management.
If you join that team again, the team that you're most recently with, and you're obviously in the new division, what would be the expectation going into that season? Would it be to survive, or is the team good enough to go up another league?
It's definitely to go up another league. But this team didn't go up to the next league, despite the fact that we won the league unbeaten. We failed in the playoff stages. So they are still going to play in the same division, which is also why I don't want to stay in that team, because it was just mentally stressful, basically, the fight for winning the title and trying to gain promotion. And I don't think I can do that 2 times in a row, 2 seasons in a row. It's too much for me.
So realistically, going into next season, obviously the European leagues have just finished, so you've got a whole summer to be able to find a move. Realistically, what is the most realistic option right now?
Realistically, it's going back to Thailand and just playing for the team in the Division 2. But I'm still going to try to go straight to the Division 1 if I can. And if I cannot, I'm just going to play in the Division 2. It's still higher than the league that I played last season.
Ekene, I wish you all the best in that. It's been an hour of talking to you about your career, starting off in a humble Christian background in Nigeria to playing in Thailand, Cambodia, and having a love for soup. I wish you all the best, Ekene. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.